realities. Without further ado, allow me to introduce to you our guest speakers for this coffee circle conversation. First, we will be hearing from a former Arrupe volunteer batch 43 and currently a supervising administrative officer in the Ministry of the Interior and Local Government of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Please help me welcome Ms. Ashrea Bay Sinarimbo. Hi, Ms. Ash. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Our second speaker is also a former Arrupe volunteer, this time from batch 46, and is currently one of the formators of the Seniors Integration Program of Ateneo de Davao and a researcher of the Interfacing Development Interventions for Sustainability, or IDIS. Please help me welcome Mr. Rick Lawrence Inting.
Hello, everyone. Good
Hi, Rick.
afternoon, and thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. So hello, Rick and Ash. Welcome to our Coffee Circle conversation. May I ask first, how are you feeling this afternoon? Kamusta ba? Rick, how are you?
Medyo kinakabahan, konti na lang, but it's more of an excitement because this is a venue wherein I'll be able to share my experiences, my insights, and hopefully I will be able to inspire other people to do peace building activities with my own stories.
Yes, thank you, Rick. We're very excited to have you here as well. How about you, Ash? How are you feeling this afternoon?
Hi everyone. I'm really glad to be with you this afternoon. I'm so happy also to see familiar faces, and yeah, excited ako for this afternoon.
Yes, me too. No, we do seem very familiar. I think it's like an Arrupe volunteer reunion. So we have a volunteer from batch 43 and Rick from 46, and then yours truly is from 44. So I'm very glad that you are both here as our speakers this afternoon. So before we jump into the conversation itself, it would also be nice if you could introduce yourselves a bit more to our audience this afternoon by sharing about what you're working on these days, especially maybe activities or programs that are related to peace building. Maybe we can start with you, Miss Ash.
Hi Trish. Yeah. So um okay, so brief sharing lang no ng aming project. Actually, our Project Saguna, it's called Project Saguna Crafting Stories of Hope and Resilience, is one of the finalists of the Ideas Positive Run 10 of the Unilove Foundation. Actually, we've already concluded it earlier this year, but the money we got from the Unilove Foundation were used to fund the continuation of this project. So technically, it's still ongoing. This project was designed to mainstream psychosocial support and personality development to facilitate the reintegration to mainstream society of the young members of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or the MILF. Um, our beneficiaries were young individuals who were formerly involved in the armed conflict and aging from 18 years old to 25 years old. So these were actually members of the MILF that were exposed to the local violence and have grown up with the lens of revolutionary movement. So they were based in the administrative headquarters of the MILF, which is the Camp Darapanan. So having based there, it is worth noting that our beneficiaries have little to none or to no interactions with any organizations aside from those who ascribe themselves as supporters to the struggles. So, yun siya.
Wow, Miss Ash, that's really amazing work. Giving psychosocial support no from former MILF youth. Thank you for sharing that, Rick. How about you? What are you busy with these days?
From me, no. So aside from my current, I also share the past works that I've already did, no. So in the past, kasi yung wala pang COVID, I had a lot of work with EDs, no. And these works were more on field works wherein we would go to communities and interview them regarding our focus, no. So yung ibang focus namin that time is one would be the protection of heritage trees in Davao City. So yun we went around Davao City, locate heritage trees, interview individuals who own those properties of land and try to parang convince them or get information from them on how we can protect those heritage trees, no. So another project that I did with EDIS is the promotion of bicycle lanes during the COVID-19 pandemic dito sa Davao City. So we promoted that sa city government and fortunate enough it was implemented, no. And currently, no, my work is as a research assistant, no, under Father Tony Basilio here in Ateneo de Davao University. And our current work, uh, although it has not really yet started pa, it is projected to start next year pa around March or April kasi we're still waiting for the funding, no, from the DOST. But this work entails building a machine na that would desalinate water from that would you would get water from the ocean, then parang purify it so that it can be used for drinking, no. So this machine would hopefully be used in uh, water yung mga areas na medyo mahirap sa water sources, no. And one particular place would be in Tawi-Tawi. So right now, what we're doing is parang mga preliminary studies like getting research articles, yung mga pag-gather ng mga data, information, so that by the time that the funding comes from DOST, maging full-blown na talaga siya na research project, no. And also, I am a part-time faculty dito sa Ateneo de Davao University. So aside from being an SIP formator, I also handle classes in science, technology, and society, and as well as a class in environmental science. So yeah.
Thank you, Rick. Sounds like also really great work, no, on peace building, specifically on environmental conservation. So we'll have a chance to discuss that more later in the conversation. So thank you again to Ash and Rick for giving us like a sneak peek of the peace building activities and initiatives that they're doing. And now that actually makes me more excited to jump into the conversation and just, start talking. So again, everyone, welcome to the Coffee Circle conversation. We're very glad to have you all here. So Rick and Ash, are you ready? May I see a thumbs up or a coffee mugs up? Okay, there. Okay. Thank you very much. So perhaps it would be, of course, no, as all conversations do, it would be good to first know the beginnings of your peace building journey. So let's start at the beginning of it all. The question is, what led you to venture on a journey that led you to your peace building initiatives or engagements? So what are those factors that inspired or pushed you to be an advocate for peace? So again, what led you to venture on a journey that led you to your peace building initiatives? And what were the different factors that inspired and pushed you to be an advocate for peace? So let's hear from Ash first. Okay. Hello, Miss Ash. Can you hear
Hi.
us? Hi. Great.
Am I audible na po?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so for that question, my teammates for that project, our team is called Team Hikma. So my teammates and I had been youth advocates since we were in high school. We were once called Ambassador of Goodwill because we were sent to the US to represent the Philippines in creating a more just and peaceful world. So, di ba, cheesy siya. Pero yun talaga yung pinunta namin sa US. So, we were originally from Cotabato City, all three of us. But we transferred to different cities for our college education. Pero after graduating, we all came back to our homeland, to the Bangsamoro. All of us actually work for the BARM, for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. And during the transition from ARM to BARM, we were in the area, so we saw the need to strengthen the mental health awareness, especially to our brothers and sisters in the struggle. We actually have families that are members of the MILF, and it's really sad na for them dili naga-exist ang idea of mental health. So we saw how they struggle during the early days of the transition, yung decommissioning initiatives. When they surrendered yung kanilang mga baril and everything. So they really had a different way of living for a very long time, and they're having a difficulty in living that way of life nila, in transitioning sa ating mainstream society. So yun siya. During the transition, there were a lot of support that came in for them. Monetary donations, socioeconomic interventions, housing projects, ayuda, you name it, nandun siya. But we noticed that the mental health and the psychosocial support were not present, or if there is, hindi siya priority at that time. So our team acknowledges the need to really provide for those support. So ayan, ilan sa mga yung mga beneficiaries namin, namulat sila sa karahasan during the majority of their lives. So one cannot simply fathom the trauma or impact it brought to them, along with the state of their psychosocial well-being. So yun siya, yun actually talaga yung nag sa amin for this initiative, is that we really believe that this project would be the one way or another, hindi naman as in like solution, pero makaka-help siya for our brothers and sisters in the struggle.
Thank you, Miss Ash, for that sharing. Really very moved, no, with how you were able to create the project for the Moro youth there. It's really a beautiful example of responding to the actual needs of the community, and then I'm really cheering for the project to prosper and help even more Moro youth. Thank you very much for that. Rick, how about you? But before that, I mean, I'd like to also just point out, no, that it's not just one aspect of peace building is also environmental advocacies, right? So we also acknowledge the major contributions of conflict management, environmental security in the advocacy work that we do for Mother Earth, right, Rick? So we have Rick here to share more about that specific aspect. So Rick, let us hear from you.
Okay, so unlike Miss Ash, yung advocacy ko is more on focus towards my own personal work. Parang wala akong like a particular organization or a movement that I am joining. So I'll start na lang siguro with this quote by Lao Tzu, no, na that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And I believe that that first step that I took that led me to where I am right now and doing what I am doing right now is back when I was a kid, no. So nung bata pa ako, I was the type of a kid who's very curious of things, no, like random things lang. Like I always ask my parents, why is the sky blue? Why is there a rainbow? Why is it that during hot summer days when you look out in the distance sa road, why is there parang nakikita niyo parang moving? Why is it moving like that? No. Uh, I always am a curious person, no, back then. And little did I know na what I was fascinated back then was not really science, but the fact that I was trying to learn what is the truth behind these phenomena. No? So nadala ko yun siya, elementary, high school, until college, and until right now, I'm still a very curious person. Um, so in college, I believe that it was the point where I really developed much as an individual and develop much in my advocacy to protect, no, the environment, to help the environment in my own way. Because in college, no, I took environmental science, so we have courses like chemistry, physics, biology, and all of those hard sciences. So but they are not really parang the very highlight, no, para sa akin, because the very highlight, yung mga, I mean, the subjects that are the very highlight of my experience in of education here in Ateneo, that I would say is the turning point, no, para maging masabi ko sa sarili ko na I really want to help the environment, are the subjects of philosophy and anthropology. Philosophy, because it is the subject wherein you try to know yourself more. Parang you try to know kung where you stand uh, sa kung saan ka sa life mo. Ganyan. Ano yung morals mo as a person? What are your perspectives? And this is just reinforced by anthropology, especially development anthropology, wherein I learned na not everything that happens that is good, that seems good, no, in 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 life, let's say yung mga NGO, big names, no, na NGO who help, who yung advocacy nila is to help relieve other people from, let's say, poverty, from other injustices. Parang it's not what they are talaga. And because of that, uh, development anthropology, I'm sorry, development anthropology subject, parang it changed my perspective of how I view things, of how I view the world, no. So instead, compared before nung bata pa ko, I'm always asking why is this like this? Why is that yung appearance na ganyan? Now it is more of a parang a more complex question na why is it that even though these communities they are near to this particular resource, why are they not obtaining that kind of resource? Why are they experiencing these kinds of hardship even though they can use that? They are more nearer to that, no? Yung mga ganyan na type of questioning, kumbaga. And so apart from the question of why, I start to develop other questions, no? Like how, when, like how can I use my profession? How can I use what I have learned to help, no, and apply it in real life? And when can I apply it in real life? So it is no longer just a parang a personal quest of understanding what the world is and what the things in the world are, no, but it is now more of a quest for truth of what is good, no, yung finding the truth with justice, kumbaga. So yeah, that is for my answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Rick. I'm happy to sort of hear how it started as just a personal curiosity, and then eventually you realize, it's more than just something that you're curious about, but it a lot of things are involved, especially in conservation. I love that you touched on environmental justice as well. I'm hearing that, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about that deeper in the conversation. And I'm pretty sure if your teachers in philo and anthro are listening, they're very happy to know that you really managed to weave your advocacy into those topics. So thank you, Rick. So we're still at the start of the conversation, but I'm already feeling very moved by the stories of our speakers. So again, we have Ash here, who started her peace building journey at a young age. And together with her friends, they managed to, create this program for the youth there in Barm. And then Rick here, who, although he's not part of an organization, started peace building as a personal journey, which I believe everyone should also do, really. And then also managed to weave in, the lessons that he learned from school, in the advocacy work that he's doing now, especially as a researcher in IDIS. All right, thank you, Rick and Ash. So I think it's time for us to go to the next round of our sharing. So for all of the viewers on Facebook and YouTube, please stay tuned. Grab another cup of coffee as we now listen to our guests' significant stories of peace building. So Ash, if you're there, let's start with you once again. So the question for the second round is, what were the significant encounters or experiences in your peace building journey? And maybe tell us, why do you consider those encounters significant?
Hi again. So, to answer that question, no, in this particular project, it was launched early 2020, and it was supposed to be implemented by the end of August 2020. But then we all know that pandemic happened. So everything became blurry. We weren't sure if we can still do it, or if we would be allowed to do it. So maraming restrictions. But months passed by. We were under community quarantines. So wala kaming magawa, yung feeling na nakatunganga ka lang sa bahay. Then kabi-kabi lang balita yung maririnig mo na maraming nawalan ng trabaho, maraming business na nalulugi. So nakaka-depress siya actually. We were asked by the Unilove Foundation. Sila yung nagbigay sa amin ng grant to implement this project. So they asked us if we still want to continue this project, or mag-change na lang into a COVID response project. So either mag-change kami or i-continue. So pero we wanted to pursue this project kasi nga we saw the importance ng project namin sa community. We really wanted to pursue it like so bad. So ayaw namin siyang bitawan kasi we've already conducted mga on-site visits. We had coordination meetings with our partners, sila Sir Jester actually from ADU, yung Copers. So all of their responses were positive. Gustong-gusto nila yung project. They're very excited to implement it. Pero yun na nga, si COVID. So, pero on the other hand, gusto rin namin may gawin kami for for COVID. So, super ambitious. Ginawa namin yung dalawa. Hindi namin ginalaw yung grant namin for the project sa Guna from the Unilove Foundation. Hindi namin siya ginalaw to make sure na mai-implement pa rin talaga yung project at the right time. So, ang ginawa namin para magkaroon din kami ng COVID response, we had series of donation drives na lang. Kasi during the pandemic, parang helpless ka masyado na wala kang nagagawa. That's why kami ng team ko, naghanap talaga kami ng paraan. So parang yun yung naging encounter namin, si COVID. So parang naano kami na na-test masyado yung aming determination to pursue these activities. So aside sa aming project na isa lang siya, yung psychosocial intervention and mental health awareness, nagkaroon kami ng series of activities, not just with the MILF community, pero nagkaroon din kami ng project sa IPs, with IPs, yung ating mga daily wage earners. So instead na parang yung nakita ko na importance ng encounter na yon is instead na malimit kami sa isang project lang, mas nagkaroon pa kami ng maraming project. So yun na nga, umakyat kami ng South UP. If you're familiar with that, yung pinakabundok na ng Barm, malayo siya talaga sa city. So we went there and nagkaroon kami ng mga activities doon with the IP kids, and then series of donation drives, which is yung mga binibigay namin na mga food packs were from the daily wage earners, yung mga nagbebenta ng yung mga gulay, kasi wala silang benta. So ang ginawa namin yun, sila yung tinarget namin na maging supplier para at least may benta sila. So yun siya. Instead na nalimit kami ng pandemic sa isang project lang, nagkaroon kami ng very wide initiative, peace building initiative for a mas wider na community. So yun siya, don't limit yourselves.
Thank you, Miss Ash. Really not, it's true. A lot of organizations and their projects were affected because of the pandemic. And I'm pleased to know that even though, you were experiencing those challenges and limitations, you were still able to push through with helping the community, no, even though it's not exactly what you had in mind, no, but you were still able to make it happen. I do have a follow-up question, Miss Ash, if that's okay. Other than your significant encounters through the recent project that you're doing, maybe do you have any other significant experiences even before, when maybe you were still a student, or when you were starting out as a peace advocate? Maybe there are what were the moments that struck you maybe as a peace advocate, and why were those important in your peace building journey?
Sure. Medyo, joke lang. So, it goes way back, no? When nag-start kasi talaga ako when we were chosen to represent the Philippines. So, parang dun nag-start yung journey ko as a peace advocate sa US. Kasi yung program namin, where parang ang purpose niya is to build a more just and peaceful world through understanding the cultural differences of different countries. So yung ko dun is when we went to the US, yung community na napuntahan ko, wala silang alam about Philippines. So that was way back 2009 pa. So hindi pa masyado ang Facebook, wala pa masyadong social media. So yun, wala silang masyadong alam sa Philippines. So yung program na nagpadala sa akin doon, the intention was really just to have parang understanding about the culture, parang makihalubilo ka lang doon. So yun na siya, parang kung titingnan mo siya, ang liit-liit niya, pero the impact was so big. So parang ganun din sa project namin. We started sa konting 25 lang na participants, pero narinig siya ng buong community din, yung impact niya. So, yeah.
Thank you, Miss Ash. So, your first exposure, I would say, would be meeting different cultures and seeing how, even though you're different in your race or different in beliefs and religion, you can still live in harmony. So that's really good, no? And we do hope that more of our young leaders would also get the same kind of opportunity that Miss Ash got, no? Even if it's not abroad, kahit here in the Philippines lang, no, to be able to maybe have conversations and really engage with people of different religions, beliefs, no, and have conversations have conversation about peace or environmental conservation. Thank you, Miss Ash. How about you, Rick? Any significant experiences that contributed to your peace building journey?
For this question, no, I can think of three instances. So I'll share them with you. No. So the first instance would be my EDIS, my experience in doing projects for EDIS. No, like every project, it doesn't get old. Ito na experience because whenever we do projects, syempre included yung community. So we need to approach them, ask them, interview them, and all kinds of interaction. No? And in each of these interactions, doesn't get old na mahirap silang ipa-understand on what you are doing or what you are advocating. Kasi for them, I mean, for you, no, it's more of the project, you're advocating for the environmental protection, but for them, they don't see it that way kasi. So for them, it's like you're in my property, this is my property, tapos para sa kanila, it's more of ano yung benefit nila if they will join you in this advocacy, no? So it is there that I realized that peace building, no, is not an easy process, especially pag sa environmental advocacy, because if you're going to be realistic, people have their own problems to deal with, and the first thing that comes to their mind, yung pina-prioritize nila, is not really the environment, kumbaga. So yung maybe what they prioritize is ano yung ulam namin today, magkano yung income namin today for the next week, yung mga ganun. So they don't think of these environmental advocacy stuff. So yun yung isa sa significant na experience ko. And that is why it is important to always that the start of a peace building process is always building relationships with people, no? Kasi and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in a continuous and maybe sometimes a slow process, no? So the next one is when I worked with my thesis advisor in a parang survey project in Mindoro way back in mid 2020, around June or July. And what makes it significant is that it is the first time na I actually said yes very easily without parang making like second thoughts to help him. And the project was about surveying these hydroelectric power plants na nandun sa Mindoro, because there's something parang a problem going on with the IP communities, the Mangyans. So it's very significant. It's a very significant experience for me because it is a moment where I did a lot of first times. So first, it was my first time to immediately say yes to work on something very far from home. Tapos it is also my first time to get on an airplane, go somewhere far na ako lang isa. Then it is also my first time to meet yung mga people dun, yung IP. And I was also able to hear their stories na kung ano yung mga problems nila, ano yung mga issues nila. And the last one, the last significant experience was way back in 2018 when I was an Arrupe volunteer and I was sent to Japan for AJCU 2018. So I went there as one of the two students na pinadala doon to immerse ourselves sa communities na affected by the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake. So yung natamaan ng tsunami. So most of us may know na yung pinaka malalang natamaan during that time is the Fukushima, with the nuclear disaster in Fukushima. But there are also two other places, and yung two other places yung pinuntahan namin doon is the Ofunato and Kamaishi. So we went there, immersed ourselves with those who have been affected, no? Tried to hear their stories, kung ano yung experiences nila. And mind you, meron ding mga Pinay doon na they married na with Japanese nationals, so doon na sila nakatira. And they also shared their stories with us. And it's a significant experience because doon ko first time nakita nga na even though Japan is a very, very developed country compared to the Philippines, who would have thought na they would also they would still experience things na you thought na dito lang sa Pilipinas na experience. Yung you're thinking na developed country sila, so bakit maraming na affected and all of those things, no? And one more striking thing about that experience is that yung pag-rehabilitate sa kanila on the affected communities, yung mga task agencies to help them rebuild their homes, rebuild their livelihoods. Parang in a way, their method of rehabilitation is imposing. Kumbaga, they didn't reach out muna to the people kung ano yung need nila. And they just went on with building infrastructures, providing money to rehabilitate. Yung mga classic na understanding of rehabilitation na if this community was affected by a disaster, we should give them this and that and base it on science, base it on data. But people forget that yung mga natamaan, they are people and they have their own, kasi sila yung naka-experience ng sakuna eh. So they understand more what they need. And yung isang na-interview namin isang survivor, and she said na yung kailangan nila, most of them, is not really the money, the infrastructure and all of that, but someone who has the willingness to lend them an ear, to help to listen to their stories, no? Kasi yun yung nakalimutan ng Japanese government daw at that time when they were rehabilitating, is that they forgot hearing the stories of the people and what they really want. So yun siya. Yun yung tatlong significant experiences ko, no, with along my environmental advocacy journey.
Okay, thank you, Rick, for your generous sharing of experiences. No, you've managed to tell us really a lot about your work with IDIS, and then your experiences as an Arrupe volunteer, and also your other engagements as well. I'm very happy that you were able to share about that realization, especially on how most communities don't really prioritize immediately environmental protection. Like, it's not the first thing on their list, no, because they have to attend to the basic survival, the things that they need to survive, and that's very true. And if you're working in environmental work, that's the first thing you have to accept, no. We understand that, yes, but it's saddening that these communities are the ones who are actually most affected by environmental destruction, no. But thank you, Rick, for the sharing. No, there's a lot to pick up from that. I also sort of jotted down some things that you've said, but I'd also like to thank Miss Ash for really talking about persevering amidst the pandemic. Kasi that's it's very also true to the advocacy that you're pushing for, which is on mental health. And you and your teammates have really embodied that, no, na I'm pretty sure I do understand how it feels to want to help, but then all of these things are limiting you, no, but really going what do you call that, like really putting your faith on yourself and others, and really trusting that we have to really push this through because we have we have people to help. And that's very admirable of you and your team. And there's also something that's consistent with the talk of with the sharing of Rick and Ash, and that's really people. I hope the audience was also able to capture that, or pick that out. They kept on talking about, communicating, going to the communities, like Ash visiting that mountain and meeting the IP community, and then Rick with his experience in Mindoro, and also in Japan, and really talking to the communities that they were trying to help and hearing about their stories. So I'd like to close off this part by what Rick said, that the start of peace building is building relationships with people and doing it consistently. And even if sometimes it takes a lot of time, you still have to just continue doing it, because that's where the start of peace building is. All right. Thank you, Rick and Ash. I'm very sad that this is the last question of our conversation this afternoon. I wish we had more questions, because I'd like to talk to you, to the both of you, more about your experiences. But we want to dig even deeper into the conversation today. So please allow me to ask the question. What did you learn from all of your peace building engagements? So Rick, you're able to mention three, right? Maybe you still have more. You can also share about that later. But from those engagements, what were your major realizations or your big, great learnings from that? And how did those initiatives or engagements shape who you are today? So, Rick, can you maybe go first?
Okay. So for me, no, the best answer to sum it up, no, sum all of my experiences up, is that there is wisdom in humility. So people think na, oh, you have graduated, you have taken this course for 4 years, and you are now a professional. You have graduated in a prestigious school, and people might think na you can do anything. No, you can solve problems with what you have learned. But no matter how educated you are at something, you will never be parang a perfect person to always solve the problem of the day. No, parang there are still countless things that you don't know. So this is related to my ano kanina, yung sa experience ko sa Japan. And much of this is I owe to my education in anthropology, no. Because you can go on and saying na you want to solve this problem and just do this, do that, write it on a piece of paper and just apply it, no. And that may be correct on paper and on textbook, but it doesn't really necessarily apply directly sa real life, no? Kasi there are people involved, and like I said kanina, they know better kung ano yung kailangan nila. They know better ano yung pwedeng maging solution to the problem, because they are the ones who first-hand experience yung mga problems nila. So when we go on talking about peace building, it's really important to first build yung relationships mo with the communities that you chose. No, talk to people, hear their stories, try to feel what they feel. And from that, try to deduce what they want, and even ask them directly what they want. Be there as a support, and not someone who says na, oh, nandito ako, I've come to save your day. Kasi parang yun yung tinatawag na messiah complex eh. When you go to a community knowing and believing highly of yourself na you can do everything to help them, and it's not the reality. Parang you are there only to help, and you always think na whenever you go to a particular disaster stricken or problem stricken community, uh you are the person who has more parang less understanding of what happened. So you need to gauge your understanding with the people na nandoon. So yun siya, build relationships first in order for your peace building advocacy to be a successful and a sustainable one.
Thanks, Rick. That's a very clear and loud message, no, that if you want to start you may be advocating for peace building, you really begin with the people that you're working with. And to not come into the community, like as you said, with the Messiah complex, thinking, okay, I'm here to solve your problems, no, to not go into the community like that, but rather to go there, as you said, as a support, no, to assist them in what they're doing and really listen to them first to know what exactly they need and how you can help. Thank you, Rick. Ash, how about you? What did you learn from your many peace building engagements?
Um, I'll answer this briefly lang. So, from all of these engagements, I've learned that when you have the means to help, help in any way possible. Um, Sabi ko nga kanina, kung gusto, may paraan talaga. Do not settle sa kung anong mas convenient and easy for you. Dapat, magis always. Diba? So, kanina, sa senior ko, sa aming part kasi, we could have just implemented one project, yung mas easy for us. But we didn't settle for it kasi we know that we can do more for our community. So, yun lang siya. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Ash. Tama. Doing, not really settling for, what you think you can just do, but really also finding out if there's anything more that you can do. And really the perfect example is the project that you did in BARM, no? You're able to also parang go out of your initial plans and really, I mean, at that moment, the real and the most immediate need was really a COVID response. And your team was able to address that and reach out to that. Thank you very much, Rick and Ash. Oh, we're down to we're done with our last question. Oh my gosh. Anyway, it has been such a wonderful time with you all, and definitely nakakabitin, right? So to our friends who are listening through YouTube and Facebook, I'm sure that you also felt like, we wish we had more time with them, but it's okay because our coffee circle conversation is meant to be short but meaningful, so that you are moved to carry it on with your own friends and families, maybe or your colleagues at work. So later on, maybe at the dinner table, you can ask your friends or your families know what they think about peace and what their experiences are, and continue the conversation that we had this afternoon. So before we end, maybe I'd like to ask Ash and Rick to share a message to the Filipino youth. So what would be your message to them? How do you think they can participate in peace building initiatives in their community? Let's start with Ash first.
So, ano ba? Peace building initiatives don't have to be grand. So, in our team kasi, the vision was just to be a group of young people willing to extend a helping hand when the call arises. So, yun lang siya, very simple. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to affect the entire country, the city. You can start by targeting just a small number of individuals, and from there, you'll see the difference. You'll be able to see the difference, and mafe-feel mo kung gaano kaganda sa feeling magkaroon ng mga activities for our nation. And lastly, as Athenians, let's not forget to be men and women for others.
Perfect. Thank you, Miss Ash. Really love that peace building doesn't have to be grand. I think one of the fears, not fears siguro, no, pero apprehensions maybe of many young leaders when it comes to working with communities or doing projects is that, we don't have a lot of money, or it's not really a big project, it's a small project, no, and they're afraid to do it. But, like what Miss Ash said, it doesn't have to be grand. It can be very simple. You can even start either at your own home. You can start in your own classroom with your friends, even, no. Most especially with peace building, the peace even starts. It has to even start with us, right? So you can You can the beginnings don't have to be grand. Later on, when you start on to gain traction with the work that you're doing, you will also get the same opportunities like what Miss Ash has, like the opportunity from Unilab, which is Ideas Positive. So thank you for that, Miss Ash. And of course, a very important resounding reminder as an Arrupe Vol to always be men and women for others. How about you, Rick? How can maybe the help youth in the work that you're doing, the work that we're doing in reconciliation with the environment?
I totally agree with what Miss Ash what Miss Ash said earlier na hindi kailangan grand yung start mo in your advocacy of peace building, no. It can just start with your own self, no. Uh, Try to work it out siguro sa everyday life mo. Try to do what you believe is your advocacy. Uh, and to find that, no, first try to know yourself better as an individual. Try to know what your heart wants and what you want to pursue, what advocacy you want to pursue. Because when things get difficult kasi, uh, it's the one thing that you look back and try to find inspiration again. And parang reason of why you did it in the first place. And a second thing is to, yun sinabi ko kanina, there is wisdom in humility. So always humble yourself, be open to new things. Never think of yourself as a perfect individual, even though you have lots and lots of education in the past. Not knowing things can prove that you can always become a better individual. And lastly, do things not just for yourself, but more for the benefit of other people. So yun siya.
Thank you, Rick. Very well said. Just wanna say that again, to be able to know yourself and really know your why. Parang na ano man ako doon na chug talaga sa heart, no, as someone who's also experiencing a lot of difficulties with the advocacy work we're doing. So it's good that when things get rough, remember your why. Why did you start to do this? Why did you start to advocate for peace? Why did you start to advocate for environmental conservation? So remember your why. And very, very beautiful as well, which I also agree, which is to, to be humble at all times, understand that you don't really know everything, especially when you work in advocacy and peace building. We can't do peace building alone, na ikaw lang talaga. Of course, you have to work with other people. You have to ask for their help. You have to consult, no? So it's really, it's not something an individual can do, but it's a community. It requires the help of the community. And it takes humility to also accept na, you need the help of others in order for your project to succeed. And I do hope our future leaders, our young leaders here who are listening with us, and even our formators as well, who would still want to engage in peace building initiatives, because remember, diba, you're never too old to lead, you're never too young to lead, really. So it's peace building is for all ages. So if you're interested to engage with that, whether it's in a different whether it's peace building in the frame of environment, like what Rick is doing, or peace building in the frame of mental health, like what Ash is doing, or maybe the usual peace building for the communities, which is in line with peace with community, with humanity. I hope that you're able to remember the lessons that Ash and Rick were able to share with us this afternoon. So many really ano ba yan, chug talaga, no, straight to the heart ng mga comments and learning. So thank you once again. So I hope everyone was inspired by the messages of Rick, Ash, and of course of our conversation this afternoon. We do hope that our episode today has stirred something in the hearts of our viewers and of our speakers today as well. Through this coffee circle conversation, we continue our work of reconciliation and enter into a deeper dialogue with our fellow Mindanaoans, Filipinos, and even with our Asian friends, and as well as dialogue between Christians, Muslims, and the varying beliefs and cultures of the indigenous peoples. So a very big thank you to our guests, Miss Ash and Rick, for being with us today despite their busy schedules. Shukran, daghang salamat. Thank you very much again to our friends in Mission and our ADU community for joining us today. Our coffee circle conversation continues. Our stories of peace flourish as we, as one human family, strive to thrive for human fraternity, social justice, and the common good. So this is Trisha, coordinator of VOLO from the Arrupe Office of Social Formation and a peace builder for the environment. I would like to say daghang salamat for watching. Peace be with you. Stay safe, everyone, and see you on our next Coffee Circle conversation episode. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.